When it comes to working with men in business, is being capable, competent, and qualified enough to give women equal footing? My guest tonight says no. Christopher Flett is the author of What Men Don't Tell Women. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't tell women about business, I should point that out. So you are breaking open that code of silence. You're telling it all.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah. We have a program on the West Coast called the Ghost CEO. And when I was looking for resources for professional women that we worked with, I realized all the books had been written by women in business. And so there were main parts missing just to level the playing field for women in the workplace.
Okay, well, right off the bat, you say the greatest enemy to women in business is women in business. How many times have you been slapped for that comment?
Well, I'm 6'6", so normally the slaps
right.
don't, but there's been a lot of attempts, let me tell you. The contentious part, and the way that I've written the book is to be very blunt and speak very alpha male-like. And so what I contend is that the glass ceiling was put in place by alpha males, but women have held it there, and I think inadvertently through some of their actions in the workplace.
So what are women doing wrong then, according to you?
Well, I think there's 17 that we talk about in the book, but one of the big ones is, making excuses. And so men who are really still driving ahead in the workforce have been taught if you make excuses, you're qualifying why you've had a failure. And so when women come in and try to explain it, men just start to make judgments right off the bat and start to dismiss her as an equal in the workplace. Now,
are these differences because of our sex or because women are coming to leadership positions in business later?
Well, I think especially in New York, a study just came out that in 3 of the 5 boroughs, women are actually out earning men. But I think what's happened is there's been a lot of activities in the workplace that have held women in place, and women perpetuate that through action. And so really the intention here is just to be honest and say this is exactly how men see women in the workplace and how to engage more effectively with men.
Okay, you mentioned 17 points. List off a few more.
Well, another big one that pops into my head is accepting poor treatment. And so women are of one of 2 schools right now that I see. One is ignore poor treatment, or the other one is try to engage aggressively to kind of rectify the situation. When a woman accepts poor treatment, what she's saying to every other woman around her is, this is the price we have to pay to do business. And that's wrong. And so what we identify in the book is ways to discuss with men privately if there's a situation at work so that nobody's embarrassed, it gets rectified, and you put a clear line in the sand of boundaries at the workplace.
Well, on the surface level, when you're reading the pages here and looking at your 17 points, sometimes, thought comes to mind, wow, this sounds very sexist, very chauvinist, and very stereotypical.
Yes. And you know what? There's a lot of generalizations in the book, and I don't really make any apologies for that. What I intended with the book and what I think really comes through is women really don't have a clear idea of what happens in the boardroom once you leave. And so I want to be an open playbook to say this is what we're discussing when you've left, something that's never happened before for women. And so my intention is not for women to become men, but to understand how to engage with men more effectively in the workforce.
And women who are offended by this book, or maybe even men who are offended by the book, may think, well, how did he research for this book? Did he talk to a bunch of men on the golf course or in the cigar clubs?
Well, I'm a reformed alpha male. I used to be the worst of that book. And so after I adjusted my way of doing business, and we've worked with 2,700 women alone in Vancouver, we realized that women do business very differently than men. And so what this really brings to the forefront is what drives men in business. And any woman that's been passed over for an advancement, some type of a job raise or anything like that, needs to know this information.
Well, in reading the book, before you became the reformed alpha male, I was thinking, wow, this guy's a jerk. So what made you reform, and define what alpha male is?
Okay, well, alpha male in my world is the great white shark of business. This is the person that goes out and loves getting the deals, says things like kill it and bill it, has a whole terminology which we cover in there that I don't think women are familiar with, and really a grinder out there making business happen. And so for my own case, I was driven by insecurity, as most alpha males are. And I got to a point where my father pulled me aside, who was a bigger alpha male, and said, you're embarrassing me by the way you're acting. And so I took a breather. I had a look at how our company was doing business and started to fire off clients that didn't fit, which flies in the face of the old model. Profits drove ahead.
So you were talking about the new and the old business paradigm.
Yeah, it's tough to say, but the old boys are slowly dying off. They're not going to change their way. Reformed alpha males really see the power that women are bringing to the business world, and the skill set's complementary to ours. And so we're really looking to try to partner on an equal level, but women can't inadvertently give up their power to us. If they do, we won't see them as equals.
Well, what kind of reaction are you getting from women in business and from men in business?
Well, men are upset that the book is out because they think I'm giving away some of the advantage we've enjoyed for the last 100 years.
But do they agree with your points, though? Are they saying it's true?
Yeah, it's common sense. Like when a guy reads it, he's like, I can't believe that you actually sold a book with that content, and it's so common as this is a table and this is a jacket. When women hear about the title, they get a little bit edgy. But once they read the book, the emails come pouring in going either, where were you 20 years ago if it's a middle-aged lady? If it's a younger woman, she's like, really? Is this really how alpha males work? And women's business lives change overnight once they read it.
And you mentioned, there are generalizations in this book, but there's nuggets of truth for even the most offensive comments for those who are offended by it.
Well, yeah, and this book does not represent any one woman, but I would doubt that any woman will read this and not see parts of her within it.
Yeah. And so what made you write this book? I mean, you must have thought at one point, this book might be better received if a woman wrote it.
Well, the problem is all the books have been written by women, and the kicker is you've never had entry into the boardroom once women have left. And so that's the unique position I have. And so when I couldn't find the true facts in books, and a lot of the books out there are great, this is the full piece.
All right. Well, good thing you're 6'5", right?
6'6", yes.
Brave man for writing this book. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christopher Flett, for joining us. And the book, again, is What Men Don't Tell Women About Business.